Sargent from CXDX Connected Diagnostics, welcoming you back to the third in our webinar series. This will be available from our YouTube channel afterwards for all those that want to see the recording again, as well as on podcasts on all your favorite directories. Type CXDX Connected Diagnostics in to find them. So I'm here today with Hugh Dunstan. We'll do some intros in a second, but we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're on today, the Wabakal people, and recognise their special connection with lands and waters. Pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Today's format, as per usual, is with Hugh giving us some insights into the world that he's researched for many, many years, and then a question and answer section. So if you've got any questions, please put them into the chat box or to the question and answer section, and I'll moderate that for the back end of the presentation. So very fortunate to have Hugh with us. So Hugh's been a researcher for over 40 years at the University of Newcastle, predominantly specialising in biochemistry and even more specialising in exercise-induced fatigue. Where he did a lot of work with Professor Tim Roberts. He had some breakthroughs in understanding the significance of losses of amino acids in sweat and urine. And part of that research helped identify 6 amino acids that are lost in large quantities. He's the founder of Innovate, which produces Electrate and Optimate. As a little bit more background, I was an honours student working for Hugh and Tim a number of years ago. So that's connection number 1. And connection number 2, we share an interest and passion in rowing, and Hugh's skills are not just research. He can build boats, and he built the boat that I'm currently rowing as a single scull. So Hugh, many talents. Looking forward to hearing this presentation, coming back to you soon.
Thank you, Andrew. I will try and get this share going. Just sharing the screen. Oh, here we go. Sorry. So screen. Window. Is that sharing now? Here we go.
All good to go.
Okie doke. Hello then. Well, thanks for joining me. Today, I will introduce the high demand amino acids, or hdAA, as a new concept for supporting exercise and recovery. The goals of the new supplementation strategy are to maintain hydration, avoid muscle cramps, reduce fatigue, and keep concentrating during exercise. Key to success is an understanding of what we lose through the sweating process and the impact this has on the body. These concepts are applicable to athletes as well as everyone trying to stay active and healthy. First up is an introduction to hdAA. There are 6 hdAA. These are noted for being involved in numerous body processes and are thus in continuous demand. They are vital for supporting the 4 major areas of body functions, which are energy systems, growth and recovery, structural integrity, and metabolism. For example, in energy systems, glycine is used to construct the porphyrin ring, which enables hemoglobin to carry oxygen. This same porphyrin ring is at the heart of the mitochondrial powerhouses that extract energy from ingested foods. In terms of structural integrity, we hear a lot about collagen supplements to help build your soft tissues. But you don't need to eat collagen to make collagen. The key feature for collagen production in the body is an adequate supply of glycine, because this amino acid alone comprises 1/3 of the amino acids in the collagen proteins. The other hdAA have important functions as precursors for forming DNA bases, antioxidants, neurotransmitters, and facilitating the removal of waste nitrogen by forming urea. So you can see that the body's functional demands for the supply of hdAA are high, and the rate of utilization is very rapid. To add to their demand, these hdAA are also lost in very high quantities in sweat and urine compared with the other amino acids. Let's now consider the impact of losing resources by sweating, which is essential to keep your body cool. Whether you are active in sports, out for a walk, or training in the gym, you will be losing fluids in sweat. What is important to realize is that you are also losing electrolytes and high-demand amino acids. You only have to lose 2% of your body weight in fluid, electrolytes, and hdAA to have serious declines in physical and motor skills. For a 75 kilogram person, 2% of the body mass is 1.5 litres. Given that the sweating rate is around 0.5 to 2 litres per hour, 1.5 litres could easily be lost over an hour of exercise, leading to significant dehydration. The sweat losses associated with dehydration lead to muscle cramps, pain, fatigue, and reduced coordination. The question is, what is the best way to maintain or restore hydration? To answer this question, let's look at the actual formation of sweat. Production of sweat occurs in the sweat gland, and the initial sweat fluid is then channeled into the duct. This newly formed sweat fluid has levels of sodium, chloride, and potassium that are similar to those in the plasma. The sweat is then forced along the duct under pressure towards the skin surface. It is critical that the body does not lose too much sodium and chloride via the sweating process. Thus, as the sweat passes along the sweat duct, 70 to 90% of the sodium and chloride ions are resorbed. Consequently, the final concentration of sodium is much lower in the final sweat at around 30 units compared with 140 in the primary sweat and plasma. This represents a very efficient resorption process. However, the resorption process comes at a cost. Potassium and hdAA are effectively pumped into the sweat fluid to counter the resorption of sodium and chloride. The result is that potassium is 2 to 3 times more concentrated in the final sweat, and the hdAA are 6 times more concentrated than in the plasma. The hdAA are pumped into the sweat at disproportionately high levels during exercise. The concentration of hdAA in the sweat is 7 times higher than it is in the plasma. Collectively, they represent about 1/3 of the plasma amino acids, but in sweat, they are nearly double the concentration of the low-demand amino acids, or ldAA. So it becomes clear that sweating is an avenue for substantial losses of the hdAA, which are also needed to run the metabolism of the body. To give you an example, there's a lot of talk and media hype about replenishing the branched-chain amino acids, or BCAA. But in sweat, 7.5 times more hdAA are lost per hour than the branched-chain amino acids. That's 750 milligrams compared with 100. The high concentrations of hdAA in sweat represent a significant discharge of these amino acids from the circulating plasma. In urine, the difference is much greater. 30 times more hdAA are lost per day than BCAA. That's 500 milligrams compared with 15. These data provide new insights for maintaining amino acid supply and hydration because we need replenishment of fluids, electrolytes, as well as hdAA. We can look at this another way. We know that the rates of loss of the amino acids in sweat per hour, and we also know the levels of the plasma circulation. Based on sweating alone, it would take around 6 minutes to deplete the plasma serine levels from sweating during exercise. Histidine and glycine also have very rapid depletion rates at 17 and 41 minutes respectively. Comparing the equivalent rates for the branched-chain amino acids, isoleucine would take 96 minutes, leucine 102 minutes, and valine 194 minutes. The depletion times for the BCAA are much higher than those for the hdAA. This means there is a higher demand to supply these high demand amino acids to restock plasma levels compared to the branch chain amino acids. Where does the body source the amino acid it needs to immediately replenish the plasma? Muscle proteins are broken down to amino acids by a process of catabolism. This yields the hdAA needed to provide the body with the necessary resources to support exercise, sweating, and recovery. But not all amino acids need replenishment at the same rates. This means that the lower demand amino acids are either recycled or converted to fats, utilized for energy, or excreted in sweat. We have to sweat to maintain our body temperature. The formation of sweat is designed to conserve supplies of sodium and chloride, and this occurs at the expense of losing high quantities of potassium and hdAA. As we lose fluid through sweating, there is a shrinkage of the plasma volume, up to 10%, which helps to keep the concentrations of key ions and nutrients in balance. Recent research has shown that if you provide water for rehydration, then this effectively dilutes the plasma electrolytes and metabolites, and this has been linked to muscle cramping. Providing fluids with electrolytes and hdAA replenishes the key factors lost during sweating. This allows rehydration without causing muscle cramps. Providing the hdAA also helps minimize the requirement for breaking down muscle proteins for their supply. This means a faster recovery. We have developed two formulated sports drinks to provide the hdAA, Optimate and Electrate. Both supply the hdAA in quantities that match daily requirements and demands during exercise. They can help maintain and build muscle mass because they reduce the demand for the breakdown of muscle proteins. Optimate was designed for the daily supply of hdAA to help you build energy systems and maintain structural integrity. Electrolyte provides the hdAA plus electrolytes for maintaining or restoring hydration, as well as assisting recovery from exercise. You can now maintain hydration much more efficiently during exercise and aid recovery by providing Electrate formulated sports drink. The fluid, hdAA, and electrolytes are rapidly absorbed and no digestion is required. Providing the hdAA will reduce the demand for the breakdown of muscle proteins. Less breakdown means faster recovery times. Providing hdAA and potassium will help resorb the sodium and chloride in the sweat. The Electrate is efficient in design and delivery. There are 86 servings in the tub, which works out to just 81 cents per serve, and there's only 6.3 calories in every serve. The more active we are, the more losses of hdAA stack up over time. The older we get, digestive efficiency declines, and the losses of hdAA become even more important. Supplying the hdAA can help maintain the supply of key resources to enable the body to perform at its best. You can find out more information on the Innovate website at innovate.com.au, and there are several application resources available, including links to our research publications. Thank you for listening.
You spectacular. Thank you so much. Lots of questions from me.
Good.
Mainly because I'm so interested to see what other athletes have said about the product and whether you've got any stories of success to start with.
Sure. We have a great story from a lady who is an editor for a health and well-being section in a magazine for the mining industry. And we were keen to get our products into that sector, obviously for helping working, struggling in a hot climate. And she was very skeptical, I have to say. Anyway, she is a long distance runner, and we gave her a pot to try and took her through the basis of it. And just a chance that you asked that question, I actually have a couple of the testimonies here, and I'll just read you out what she said. A long-time runner, I've always been plagued by stitches, but since taking a dose of electrate before each run, I haven't had a single stitch. I've also not had a single cramp, and I can see a general improvement in muscle recovery. To me, I reckon that's great.
That's a very good testimonial. So we see it on the rugby league and the sporting fields. Lots of athletes cramp up, particularly high humidity at the back end of the game. Would this prevent that sort of cramping episode?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been trying to make contact with these professional groups for ages, and we continually be amused at the cricketers, for example, who rely on pickle juice. And there's very little science behind its conception or anything, but they swear by it. But this is absolutely perfectly designed for the sports like endurance running, for cricket, where you're constantly exposed to heat and performing in the sun. And also now, even in the wintertime, the adrenaline effect of the adrenaline and these team sports actually goes to increase your energy utilization and your depletion, and you are sweating. You may not realize that you're sweating when it's cold, but you are, because your body's generating so much heat. That's how it keeps it cool. And so this is absolutely perfect for application in these kind of sports.
So it sounds like it can help during. What's an athlete likely to feel from taking this after exercise? So they may not be taking it to stop a cramp immediately, but they're taking it as a recovery type thing. What does that look like?
So when you exercise, the blood gets diverted from the digestive tract to support delivery of oxygen to the muscles and removal of waste products. And so effectively digestion it's not shut down, but it's pretty much diminished. And depending on the intensity and duration of your exercise, digestion remains diminished for several hours after. So I mentioned this catabolism as a means where the body can instantly access a supply of amino acids by breaking down the muscle proteins. This catabolism keeps on going for many hours after you stop exercising. So that means your muscles your proteins in your muscles have been broken down for several hours. Even if you eat protein, whey drinks, whatever, straight after exercise, they're not being digested for hours. So if you can get a product like Electrate or Optimate into your system as soon as you can after you finish your exercise, you're actually providing right there and then access to these key nutrients that are in high demand to help the body recover. And what that then does is to minimize the demand for breaking down the proteins during the recovery phase. And if you minimize that protein breakdown of muscles, then the body doesn't have to rebuild them. So therefore, your recovery is much more efficient.
Fantastic. We have something from the Q&A section. So comment starts with, "Hi Hugh, very interesting," which is great. Can you tell us about the salts in Electrate? Are they the same as other rehydration drinks?
We went to great lengths to look at the losses of sodium and chloride. So they need to be replenished. And what we then did was, because of what I've just presented about understanding the, if you like, the sacrificial lamb of potassium, potassium's been literally pumped out of the system to help resorb the sodium and chloride. And so it's really important to have potassium in there. I didn't mention this because I just wanted to keep it relatively straightforward, but magnesium and calcium are also lost in the same way, but not nearly to the same extent. So a proper rehydration strategy should include replacement of your sodium and chloride, but also potassium, magnesium, and calcium. There are a couple of the current sports drinks do provide some potassium. Very few, I don't think there's actually any that provide all five other than our own. And it's really important to give that full swig of electrolytes.
So one of the things athletes do is usually combine a few things to try and make it easier. What would happen? Would there be any adverse outcome if they put some of your product into one of the sports drinks, which already
No,
carries
not at all. It'd be fun. The design of our product is to provide what we feel precisely needs to be replenished, because these are the big factors that are lost. Interestingly enough, anyone who's had BCAA or the full amino acid supplement, they taste foul. They really they really are awful. But these 6 amino acids don't taste foul at all. It's literally the branch chain ones that are the bad tasters. So the taste is neutral. You can blend it into anything. The way it's been designed is that rather than rely on dissolving it, it's got lecithin in there, so that when you actually shake it, it stays suspended. So the only thing you need to do is just to shake well before you drink it. It's a lot of athletes, especially the endurance athletes, have worked out their own regimes for providing carbohydrate energy to get them through, and that's a whole different concept, and we're not part of that at all. You could combine it with that very easily, so that's good. If you already got your electrolyte solutions made up and they work for you, fine, then you can just add the Optimate, which doesn't have any electrolytes in it, and that would be a very good way of combining the products. If you're going to put it in Powerade, it defeats the purpose a little bit, just because we try to do this without having sugar. Sugar is not the very high content. They've got huge contents of sugar, a lot of these sports drinks, and they're not particularly good for you. So we're trying to have a low calorie solution that works.
Fantastic. So we talked about eating to replace the protein. So you see a lot of sports nutritionists and individuals who take protein shakes, protein supplements afterwards. Why is this a better idea than getting that?
Well, it comes back to what we were saying earlier about digestion. Let's look at 2 issues. One is a requirement for protein for high performance athletes, and another is supporting exercise. So during exercise, the idea is to minimize the breakdown of muscle proteins, and that's where our products come in, because you're providing those amino acids in high demand and minimizing the breakdown of the muscle proteins. That's great. You don't need to digest amino acids. They're readily absorbed, and that's a key feature of the product. So to take a protein drink straight after exercise doesn't really make sense, because you can't digest. If you've been doing a hard workout, if you played a rugby match, or if you've been on a long run, you won't be able to digest it for hours. And so it sits in your stomach while the muscles are still breaking down their own proteins. Now, you do need a high protein intake if you're a highly active person. And quite often the whey proteins and those protein powders are a really cheap and effective way of getting the protein you need to sustain your activity. But it's all about timing. You don't want to mix having your meal. I mean, you wouldn't sit down and have a steak. straight after you've done your training session. It's the same principle, you know. Those protein powders are helping you get enough protein in your diet, but as a support of exercise, it's not in the right ballpark.
So as a supportive exercise, what's the right time to take this? When should people take?
So all sorts of applications. You can, the Optimate, we've designed that primarily as a daily intake. So you might have that with breakfast, and then that sets you up for the day and fills up all of the shortfalls, because they are accumulative. So that's that product. But we hear a lot about pre-loading or pre-exercise drinks, and usually they are full of caffeine and a stimulant, and they're really not doing you any good other than giving you a false impression of getting pumped up. But if you take the Optimate 30 minutes, 40 minutes before an exercise session, it does two things. It actually provides you with the amino acids you're about to be using in good quantity, and it provides you with the fluid to get you hydrated. What continuously surprises me is when you talk to coaches or trainers, and players roll up to a match dehydrated. They come to training in the morning, they're dehydrated. People come to work in the morning, they're dehydrated before they even start. So actually taking an Optimate drink before is a good way to make sure you're hydrated. So you're going to offset or delay the impact of dehydration even further. If you can, then if you can sip during your training session or between races or whatever, you can sip at a bottle just to keep yourself topped up. One of the things that I guess most people really have no idea is how much fluid you actually lose during exercise. I've mentioned 0.5 to 2 liters per hour. And if you're in a constant, or if you're in a game, you're playing golf or playing tennis for an hour, you can lose that amount of fluid very easily. And it's pretty easy to work out. You just weigh yourself before and after. And it's, I know that without working very hard, I can lose 700 or 800 mils an hour. And if I start doing it really more effectively, more intensely, or during the summer, that'll go up to about 1.4, 1.5 liters per hour.
And which one do I take and when? How do I know when to take Optimate and when to take Electrate?
Well, the Optimate, I think I would take as a daily top up in the mornings. And then if I do a workout, if I've been on a long session in the afternoon, or it's getting really hot and I know I've been sweating because I'm working, doing something, then the Electrate is a really good recovery or pick me up. I find if you take it with the ice cold water, it's just a terrific thirst quencher because it's providing exactly what you need. So you can, some people like to put Electrate into a drink bottle and they'll take it to the gym, sip on it. Some people don't like doing that during the workout, so they'll take it straight after the training. In the case of rowing, you can have a day.
Wonderful. So we're nearly the end. I do have to ask these two last questions.
Mm-hmm.
More a little tick, because I know a lot of people will be wanting to know. So any of the components of Electrate or Optimate are legal for sports that would cause athletes to suffer a ban?
Good question. So our product gets tested independently for 200 banned substances by WADA, and it's come up with a clean bill of health. So there are no strange herbal extracts in it. There's no drugs, there's no peptide hormones, there's nothing in it. It's completely safe. And we do have a certificate of analysis if anybody likes to see that for each batch.
Wonderful. And we're a highly regulated country as far as our medical supplies as well as our foods that we produce. what's your company gone through to make sure that people can be satisfied with the manufacturing processes?
We have a third-party manufacturer who is very professional. We screened lots of them. These people are very good. They provide us with a list of allergens for which they can guarantee are not in the product as byproducts. They can. It's through the highest level of GMP, so we're very pleased to have a very professional outfit that's doing this for us.
Wonderful, Hugh. I think that's the main point. GMP certified. Not going to cause any problems with WADA. What a very interesting talk. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to inviting you back to the Newcastle Rowing Club boat shed to work out with us, help improve our performance. We definitely need it. Thank you to those that have joined the webinar, will watch the webinar as a recording or listen to this on podcast. This has been Andrew Sargent for CXDX Connected Diagnostics and Hugh Dunstan, researcher, innovator, founder,